We've put a budget together here in New South Wales, which in my view is the envy of the Western world. And the reason I say that is because we are now in a financial position that we can invest in the things that people across the state really value and treasure. And that's the best quality health care for our families. It's the best education for our children, and also significant investments in road and rail infrastructure so people can get home to their families faster. And if you look at the numbers, it's a very strong financial position at $4.5 billion surplus. Every single dollar will be invested into infrastructure across New South Wales for the betterment of our people. And we don't run surpluses for the sake of it. We see other states around the country in debt and deficit, struggling to make ends meet, struggling to make have the ability to invest in the roads, in the schools, in the hospitals. We're able to do that, and that's why I say we don't run surpluses for the sake of doing it. We run those surpluses so we can invest in communities right across New South Wales. And it's not just the major projects. One of the key aspects of this budget has been investment in the smaller projects in communities across the state. In the multicultural space, we've allocated $10.9 million for community languages to provide opportunities for people to who may have English as their second language to continue to, be part of that culture, which really makes our culture here in New South Wales deeper and flourish as a great society. So we're very proud of the work that we've done. In terms of some of the other announcements, in terms of the health space, we know that we have an ageing population. $100 million over 4 years. We're investing in palliative care. That's the most generous palliative care package, because we know it's really important for us to make sure as our population ages, we have the support available to those people who are in a more vulnerable position. And that's a really key point, that we don't just run these strong financial positions for the sake of it. We're able to then invest not just in infrastructure, but to make sure that those people who are in a more vulnerable position are given the care and the support that they need in their lives. And that's what we've been able to achieve here. We've also got, which is what I call the soul of the budget, which we put together, which was the $100 kids rebate for kids to get involved in sport in their communities. I think we'll be out tomorrow in Kellyville, where young people, all school-age kids, will be given a $100 voucher so they can get involved in community sport. We're going through a consultation phase over the next few months to make sure we have the right sports included, but we know that sporting clubs are the heart of our communities, and our communities are the soul of our state, and we want to make sure that we have a state which gives kids the best start in life, and also help and assist on the cost of living pressures that families across New South Wales are facing. So Ray and I, we get into politics, we want to make a difference, and I think the benefits of what we see today in this budget is on the back of the reforms that we took to the people at the last election. This success of this budget is directly related and is the success for the people of New South Wales. They trusted in us to embark on a reform. That reform is now generating dividends that we can invest in communities across the state, because our goal is to make New South Wales the best place to live, to work, and to raise a family, and this budget delivers on that.
You greatly appreciate those words, and if I can just elaborate ever so briefly on some of the things that Dom has said. In terms of social services, this is an extraordinary budget. State governments will predominantly always need to be there to provide the important infrastructure such as road, rail, building and construction of hospitals and education. But ultimately, a government will be judged by the way it treats and supports its most vulnerable in the community, the sick, the frail, the aged, those people, new refugees that are coming to this country, and the differences that this particular budget will make. Those people in terms of their disability supports. This budget supports them like no other. So whether you are a parent with children going to school, more teachers in your schools, the ability for 32,000 students to have a place in the new construction and expansion of our schools. If you are a parent who have grandparents, or indeed if you are children and parents that are sick and suffering, the palliative care that is within this budget to support you, and as I've said before, the supports to culturally diverse communities through our particular budget, we are extremely pleased. An additional $23 million this year, which $13 million will go to directly support refugees through our dedicated settlement unit at Multicultural New South Wales offices in Parramatta. That will support the various partnerships that we have already, together with the NRL and City Funder and the AFL, and they are so important to reach out into those culturally diverse communities to be able and enable those young people to feel a part of our community through team sports. Nothing breaks down the barriers of cultural and religious divides like sports can, and so we will continue to enhance those particular programs through this particular budget. $2.4 million over 4 years in new spending to oversee and coordinate the New South Wales Government's responsibility in that particular area of refugee resettlement. $10 million to provide interpreting and languages services within Service New South Wales. And on top of that, as the Treasurer spoke briefly, almost $11 million, $10.9 million in terms of our support for community language schools. We know one of the great ways to benefit our society is if we can support communities who may have a cultural background, people from different nationalities who can connect with their native tongue, even though English primarily will be their language in Australia. How wonderful, how economically and socially beneficial that will be. And so the opportunity to now support that with new policy and supports for children to maintain their cultural links to their heritage through their language, we see that as being fundamentally important. So that will go through, and that policy is now being developed, but $11 million in this budget to support that going forward. In terms of youth, $3.9 million for youth participation programs, and another $1.5 million in our volunteering strategy. Volunteers, 2.1 million volunteers across New South Wales. Volunteering falls within my responsibility. So incredibly proud, and we could never, ever, ever reward those people for the time and the commitment that they put in on behalf of our community. So really glad to see that particular money there this year as well. And just picking up on what the Treasurer did say, as I spoke about the best way to cut down those cultural and religious divides by reaching out and having so many young people participate in sport. I think whilst it is outside the remit of my budget, the Active Kids rebate that the Treasurer spoke about, that $100 to a family, that it will enable a child, perhaps now at a very, very young age, to participate in sporting programs. I see that as being the prelude, and that our support backs that in together with reaching out in those communities to having active participation in sport. It's wonderful for the health of our communities, but it's also wonderful on behalf of the health of our young people. And so I think you can see right across the board, as I've said before, there will never ever be a more socially responsive budget than what has been handed down, and I commend the Treasurer and what he's been able to deliver, and certainly our Premier and our government very, very proud. We'll always be proud of the great structures and the buildings that we're building right across New South Wales. They in turn will support all of our communities, but when we drill right down into the socially responsive areas of health, education, disability, cultural diversity, this is a budget that delivers like none other before. Thank you.